Good day, guys. I hope everyone is doing well. So today, I recently, came about a report that, the nuclear energy sector is being dominated by China and Russia. Now, a report by the International Energy Agency was warning that, out of 30 new designs, 27 are from Chinese and Russian. And it was very interesting to see how, China and Russia have come to dominate the nuclear reactor, power sector, because when you look at since 2017, 87, no, 87 nuclear reactor design have been from Russia and China. Out of the 439 um, nuclear reactor designs that are in the world, or nuclear reactors that are in the world, 80 of them are from Russia. In fact, Russia is more dominant in this field. And it was very interesting to see how, the Russians have invested in, in nuclear reactor technology. This is not something that is talked. A lot of people are focusing more on oil and gas. And, people are saying that, when you sanction Russian oil and gas, you've killed their source of income, you killed their power, and it's very interesting to see that Russia are not just good in oil and gas, they're also very advanced in in nuclear reactor technology, because they understand that the future will move one day away from oil. So Russia and China, especially Russia, have ensured that even if it reaches that point when people won't need oil and gas, because 50% of the any foreign currency that is as Russia, it comes from oil. 30% of Russian GDP is from oil. They understand that oil might not be a very viable option when it comes to future. So they've heavily invested in their nuclear reactor program. In fact, 40% of the uranium conversion, technology, in the world is owned by Russians. Because even when you get uranium out of the ground, you need to convert it so that it can be nuclear reactive. It can provide power. It's the conversion process. 40% of that manufacturing sector is controlled by Russians. And it's very interesting because uh, when you look even now, when the sanctions have come, they've only sanctioned oil and gas, but they haven't sanctioned the Western countries haven't sanctioned Russia's nuclear program, because they understand that most countries are relying on these nuclear programs. And if they sanction them, it might be catastrophic because, as I said, Russia controls 40% of the uranium conversion. Out of 430, almost 100 of the reactors are from Russian or have Russian design. So it's a very big player. And, out of 400, 100 are from Russia design. Probably the other close to 100 are from China. So it leaves the other people competing. And most of the nuclear reactors in the Western world are old. The nuclear game really took advance when in the 1970s, when there was the oil crisis, when the Gulf countries decided not to sell the oil because of the Israel and their 7 day war. 7 day war. So most countries felt that shock of not having the oil. I think history is repeating itself, because even now there is that shock of oil becoming low in supply because of the sanctions that Russia is suffering and its invasion of Ukraine. But during the 1970s, most countries invested in the nuclear program so to avoid a future. But when things went by, most Western countries started decommissioning the nuclear power plants. Some of them became very expensive to maintain, and most Western countries have, most nuclear plants are already 30 years old, 20 years old. But the new models that are coming up are being designed by Russia and China, specifically Russia. I did a video explaining that Hungary and Russia have a nuclear treaty, in terms of Russia is going to build a nuclear plant there. Lavrov was going all over the world the other day, especially in Africa. He went to officiate a deal of Russia building for Egypt, a nuclear power plant. The USSR has been having a foothold in Egyptian energy sector. The Aston High Dam, the dam that was built in the Cold War days was built by the USSR, but now the Russians have come. They are building them a nuclear power plant. during the SCO, summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, Turkey and Russia, Putin and Erdogan, they decided to start commissioning the nuclear power plant that had stagnated, had stalled. So it shows you that the Russian and the Chinese, nuclear reactor departments, there's good word of mouth that these people know what they are doing, their quality, and there's a lot of reasons why people are preferring Russian and Chinese, because their nuclear power plants are a fair price. They are finished on time, and these people are very committed to the design, and there's less bureaucracy. We understand how the Chinese work. If they come and you tell them to do work, they can really perform. But the Western sides can't compete because, first of all, their nuclear reactor programs are too expensive. If you talk about a country like America, they're too expensive. And because of the bureaucracy, these agreements have to go to the Senate, to the lawmakers. They have to be environmental to come and on board and see. This takes time, and it's very interesting that a program might even take forever, because if you look at the Russians that are doing now in Turkey, one of the reactors is going to be commissioned next year. So it just shows you how efficient and how aggressive the Russians are. And if you look at how the geopolitical game is being played, it's very interesting, because everyone is more focused on Russia losing its powers and energy in terms of gas and oil, but they haven't looked at the other aspect. Russia is controlling probably the nuclear energy sector, and which is very vital, because the international Energy Agency wants to push the world by 2050 to be a zero emitter, the whole world, to push policy. And they're saying the fastest way to this is through nuclear energy, because nuclear energy is very clean. It's very clean. I'm waiting for for a movie by Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone uh, is a guy who creates documentaries, and I'd say a journalist, someone who creates his shows are based on like a curtain raised in terms of an eye opener, showing the other side of things. He said the next movie of him is how he's showing that nuclear energy is the safest way and the cleanest energy that we can rely on, contrary to what we've been hearing, that nuclear energy is not safe. It's bad. He's arguing that these analogies are being pushed by the oil companies so that countries cannot rely on nuclear energy. And so, since the International Energy Agency is pushing also for countries, the fastest way for countries to go zero net emissions through nuclear energy, it means also the Russians understand, and they are pushing, double, triple, the number of nuclear power plants in the world, and they are warning that if this pace is at the next trajectory, if there's no competition from the Western side, Russia and China will dominate almost, 3/4 of the nuclear energy market, and this is also a big threat to Western dominance in terms of technology. The other day we were seeing that Germany was trying to shut its nuclear power plants. They were tired of them, but because of the war now, they have said they won't shut. France also has said it won't shut. But you see, these are they were to them, they were ready. They were already on the way, not decommissioning nuclear power plants. So it means they were not investing in them. But on the other side, the Russians were investing heavily, the Chinese were investing heavily, and this is just another to show how China and Russia are working together, to try and frustrate Western hegemony, or contain it. And it will be very interesting to see how this game played, because most of the world now is hungry on energy, and nuclear power plants are the next game changer. Probably even African countries, where I stay in Kenya, there was a talk that we also need a nuclear power plant, and I'm sure the guys who are going to get that contract is either the Russia or the Chinese. It's either of the two. So it will be very interesting to see how these politics play, and I'll just watch and try to analyze. Anyway, guys, thank you for always reaching out and talking to me. Please subscribe, like, and share. And I'm always glad to talk. Yeah, thank you. Cheers.